Symbotic has struck a deal to expand its partnership with Walmart. According to the Wall Street Journal, Symbotic will take on a $520 million program to develop an automated delivery platform for Walmart stores, while also agreeing to buy the retail giant's advanced systems and robotics business. Walmart will fund a development program that aims to leverage Symbotic's artificial intelligence enabled robotics platform and will seek to enhance Walmart's current online pickup and delivery fulfillment systems and design new systems. Symbotic said that if performance criteria are met, Walmart is committed to buying and deploying systems for 400 accelerated pickup and delivery centers at stores over a multi-year period. John, you're Mr. Grocery here. We're going to you first. Why would Walmart ink this deal with Symbotic, and what do you think it says about Walmart's approach to delivery?
Yeah, so this is actually it's great because it's like the only grocery topic we have, almost a grocery adjacent, and it's still not quite there today. So I'll do my best.
Right, right, right.
And I do have to just before I start give a shout out to my brother David, who works for a company called Auto Store, who are also in the robotic space. So I was able to get a good insight from him last night on the kind of the information on this deal. So that's super helpful for me.
Competitive intelligence. I love
Yeah,
it, John. I
I'll
love
try
it.
and be careful with what I share, right? He was a little
Yeah.
on the gossip side of things, but I'll try and keep it factual here, right? But I do think generally speaking, if you look at it first of all from like the industry lens, like
Yeah.
Walmart, one of their key kind of accelerants enablers over the last number of years has been this focus on technology. So throughout their organization, they're super focused on technology. They already have an existing deal with Symbotic on like large scale DCs and automation of their DCs, which has been
Yep.
successful. And the way I would kind of position that is Symbotic have been pushed very hard by Walmart to improve and up their game, which has then driven Symbotic's growth over the course of that time. If you take this as a separate piece, then this is a little bit more focused on their what I think used to be called MFCs, but people have slightly
Yep.
moved away from the term MFCs, I
Mhm.
think, because there's been some difficulties in getting that off the ground. And so maybe not to get into too much detail, but Walmart acquired Alert a number of years ago to bring them
Yep.
in this to do this work. And now they're
Mhm.
effectively spinning that work back out to Symbotic. And so the way I would read that is they brought it in-house, maybe found that it was more complicated than they expected to make this work with their own internal capabilities. And because it's a complicated process, and what they're really doing is, I think, doubling down on automation as a key pillar for their growth by going
Right.
to an industry leader in the space and saying to them, we want you to recreate the success you've had on large scale distribution centers to MFCs. And because it's obviously a key pillar for what they want to do, particularly using their stores as fulfillment nodes.
Right.
They haven't quite got that off the ground in the way that everybody was expecting. And I think that the structure of the deal is also very interesting. So it's being quoted as Symbotic have bought it for $200 million.
Right.
But when you go below the surface, Walmart are going to pay them 500 million. There's 230 million guaranteed at closing. There's 100 stores that they're guaranteed. So it's a very low risk deal for Symbotic that I
Mhm.
think will hopefully clean up some potential issues that Walmart have had internally. And for me, it's kind of another example of Walmart betting on innovation to continue to grow their performance. Because, I mean, Chris, I know you're a big fan of Doug McMillan, but it has been a huge success over the last number of years of how much they've grown. And I think this is just another signal of them continuing to double down on what they've seen work so far.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, how much do you think, too, with John saying, like, how much of this plays into probably the acceleration that Walmart has seen with delivery, with grocery in the last couple of years? Like, that's causing a lot of strain on their systems, I'd imagine. So, what are your thoughts here on this investment and what John had to say?
Yeah, I mean, I gave John a shout out at the beginning, and John followed suit very well and got the great competitive intelligence here. I mean, I think, Ann, your question's dead on. I mean, I think, Walmart plays the long game, as well as anyone right now. And I think that's really what, Doug McMillan and the team are doing here, and David Gugina, the head of supply chain, too. Um, the wrap I would put on this in terms of what John said is like, and I keep thinking about, and we were talking about this even before we got on the show today. I keep thinking about the Fabric Save a Lot
Yeah.
experience that we saw in Brooklyn, New York, and
Hmm.
just how easy it was to plug into a community that you don't previously serve, right? And we
Yep.
saw Uber drivers coming in there left and right, and all this thing was stood up on an Uber Eats marketplace for Save a Lot, and they were doing business out of it. So if I'm Walmart, I think I'm in the two angles I would add here to what John said is I like this move number one, but I'm thinking about these two things. I think number one, I'm thinking about how do I extend Walmart Plus because I've been successful extending my demographic. I can reach higher incomes. It brings the robotics play into the cities like we saw with Fabric and Save a Lot. So I think that's a piece of this. But the other part of this that I think is really interesting that talks about their strategy relative to others is Walmart can't really take the sortation center approach that like Target is taking because of where their stores are located. Their stores are very rural based. So to get that same day delivery efficiency, they have to go to robotics and they have to go to robotics in the store itself via micro fulfillment. So that's the key thing here. And I think that's what separates Walmart in terms of how they're thinking about the landscape relative to Target and even like Amazon too, in terms of their approach. So honestly, I can't stop thinking about the potential here that if Walmart cracks the code on this is why it's a great investment. If they crack the code on this over 10 years, like Walmart could have a very profound presence in the biggest cities in America in a way that they just don't have right now.
Yeah.
And with an income demographic that they just don't have in those cities. So that's the
100%.
play here.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. I mean, I think the thing is that this will also, in the long run, help Walmart keep prices low, which is exactly the driver that you're talking about. Like you think about, the Save a Lot example. If I'm going on a marketplace and I'm just buying eggs, like Save a Lot popped up as the cheapest place to buy eggs. And you know what? I don't really care which retailer I'm getting my eggs, but if I get served up three options and that's the cheapest, I don't care if they have a physical presence or not. That's where I'm going to go. And I think that's what this keys in on here, that Walmart will be able to do things more efficiently. They're eliminating the bottlenecks of manual picking from their process, like you said, to ship from store. And this is something that, will just continue to develop. They'll keep learning from and be able to serve more people. But jump back in, Chris.
Well, no, I just wanted to point out because I think you're dead right. Like, just because you were there with me, how many people did Save a Lot have working that facility too? Like,
they need two people to facilitate.
They had two people,
that. Two pickers.
We saw more Uber drivers coming in than there were
100%.
Workers in the 3 hours we were there. Yeah.
Yep. And picking all things. Like, again, I think that's the key thing. Like fresh, frozen, ambient. There was no manual labor associated with the picking process. It was all coming to those two individual baggers, and that was it. That was all they needed. But Kelly, any last minute thoughts here to close us up?
Definitely excited to see where it goes. I think that the Save a Lot example is a great one. If they can start to get that kind of scale, it'll be really interesting. The city play that you mentioned is one I'm excited to see play out as well.
Right. Yeah. Save a Lot's serving 2 million customers with a 7,000 square foot warehouse. I mean, I think you're dead on, Kelly. We gotta see where this allows Walmart to go.
Totally.
I would add maybe just one final thing on around the topic of the reduction of manual labor is that the basket economics of home delivery for grocery just doesn't stack up, right? So we've done some recent work where you compare the grocery basket with an apparel basket for home delivery, and the differences is so stark because everyone's losing money in grocery, and so that's why there's such a shift to kind of brick and mortar. And actually interesting, because I know we touched on it before we talked, that Robert Joseph from the Schwarz Group mentioned that 94% of sales in Germany are still brick and mortar. It's somewhere in the high 80s in the US of how much sales in grocery are still brick and mortar. So people still want to go to stores, and this is a key way to enable that, to still have pickup. And then maybe there's some component of last mile delivery, but they have to make the economics of the basket make sense. And Walmart are ahead of the curve on that versus everybody.
Yep. The other point I'd say too, it's cool to see MFCs getting talked about again, and and team, it seems like they kind of died off for a year, and we're all kind of going, why did this happen? This seems like a good idea that we need to still figure out, to John's point, because the economics don't work. But so it's great to see.